Hey guys, it's Emmy, and I'm here to do my Friday segment called Emmy Reads to Your Face! Yay! And yes, I look like a peace ninja. That's because I just got back from color guard, and it is a rather sweaty sport, so I use this to hold up my hair. In fact, it was a lot further up, but I pulled it down because I thought it looked stupid, so. Every time that I do this, from now on, because I will be doing it from now on, I will be playing one song in the background. It will be on repeat, so I'm sorry if you get bored with it, but oh well, that's just how I roll. And for the next couple of weeks, we will be reading Blood and Chocolate. This is my favorite book. You don't have to like it, that's okay. I will only be reading because the chapters are rather short. I'll be reading at least the first 3, if not the first 4. So, before I begin, the song in the background is called IDGAF by Blood on the Dance Floor. It has been in other videos of mine, and the book, as I said, is called Blood and Chocolate by Annette Curtis Klause, or Klaus, depending on how you look at it. And it is a little background about the story before I start. It is about changelings in a werewolf sense, but not like Twilight, because Twilight is lame. Because they're actual werewolves, you know, and they don't all magically turn into hotness as soon as they go through puberty. This isn't about puberty. This is about birth. As soon as you are born, you are a werewolf. No, there are no vampires in this book. It's just I'll just read it to you. But also, because this is my first video doing this, I would like to point out that I will make mistakes, and feel free to make fun of me. I'm okay with that. And so, Emmy Reads to Your Face, Chapter 1. Mom, you've been fighting again. Vivian glared at her mother. Esme. Okay. Also, Twilight stole its names from this, I swear. Okay? This was made first. This was made first. Okay? So I'll start over, sorry. Mom, you've been fighting again. Vivian glared at her mother. Esme Gadillion lolled in an easy chair, one long, slim leg thrown over the arm. She refused to stop grinning. A gash in her cheek still bled slightly. You look awful, Vivian said. Yeah, but you should see the other bitch, Esme answered. She scratched her scalp luxuriously with both hands, tousling her thick blonde hair. Again, this does swear, but it's because female dogs are called bitches, and because they're dogs in a werewolf sense. See, she's even turning into a dog in the cover. But, so they all the women call each other bitches, but it's in a female dog sense. So just get over it now. Yeah, but you should see the other bitch, Esme answered. She scratched her scalp luxuriously with both hands, tousling her thick blonde hair. Vivian sighed and came over to dab her mother's cheek with a tissue grabbed from the box on the coffee table. She would ruin her beautiful face. Can't you and Astrid leave each other alone? She had been like this ever since they'd moved here from West Virginia over a year ago now. She hardly knew her mother anymore. Can't you? She repeated. Rafe called you, Esme said, ignoring the question. Vivian rolled her eyes. That was all she needed. Couldn't he take a hint? Esme sat up and looked directly at her daughter. I thought you were with Rafe and the others. No, I wasn't. She bristled at the thought. The 5 young males who were her only age mates were likely to get the rest of the pack killed if they kept on going the way they were. So where were you? Vivian turned to leave the room. Since when was her mother so worried about where she was? Down by the river, at the rocks, she said over her shoulder. What were you doing there? Nothing. As she left, Vivian heard her mother growl softly in frustration. Why did Esme always have to bring up the 5? Couldn't she get it through her head that Vivian didn't want to be with them? The familiar knot in her gut formed, hard and tight. The fire last year had been the 5's fault, and Axel's. She slammed the door of her room. The inside face of the door was channeled with claw marks. She grew her nails and ripped another row. Axel had to go and lose it and kill that girl. Axel had been acting wild and wilder last spring and talking crazy stuff. She heard him and the 5 boasting about midnight visits to the town, where they stalked humans in the shadows and scared them silly. What they did sounded funny. Vivian made them take her too, but rumors started going around school. People were getting nervous. When Vivian said maybe they should cool it, Axel and the 5 only laughed at her. Then Axel began to go off by himself, and something seemed wrong to her. He didn't talk as much. It drove her crazy. I was half in love with Axel, Vivian thought as she stripped off her leggings. Rafe thought I was his girl, but I would have dropped him in a second for Axel. She sniffed in disgust. Caring for Axel made me stupid. She'd seen their behavior spinning out of control, and she hadn't done anything. She should have told her father what they'd been up to, even if that meant she'd be in trouble herself. But you didn't squeal on your own friends, did you? Then the night of the Valentine's dance, Axel went to town alone and killed a girl in the back of the school. Vivian still felt the heat of anger when she thought of what he'd done. She couldn't help thinking he killed for some petty reason, like the girl turned him down. And he could have had me, she thought bitterly. He must have been changing back when a classmate saw him crouched over the body. Before Axel knew he was there, the boy took off and named him to the police. The 5 decided to help. They killed another girl while Axel was in jail. They didn't let Vivian know their plans. They must have thought she'd object. And I would have, she thought, but she wasn't sure. How could a boy be covered in fur? How could a human inflict such wounds? The family lawyer pleaded for Axel. The new killing while Axel was locked up proved there was a wild animal on the loose. Axel was merely discovered the body, then had panicked and run. The case was dismissed. But someone from town believed the witness tale of a wolf that turned into a boy, and late one night the in and outbuildings burst into flames in 6 different spots, and black acrid smoke hid the moon. In the 1600s, her ancestors had fled from werewolf hysteria in France to the sparsely settled New World, and by the end of the century had settled in wild Louisiana. In the 19th century, New Orleans, the Verdun triplets broke the ban on human flesh, and the pack moved in haste to West Virginia, where they were joined by a remnants of a German pack from Pennsylvania. Last year, the forbidden appetite had won again, and the pack took flight from the hills that had been its home for 100 years and arrived refugees in the Maryland suburbs. 5 families, plus assorted others, crammed into Uncle Ruddy's run-down Victorian house in Riverview. With luck, no one would follow them here. They could mark new trails. The house on Scion Road had emptied out gradually as the others found jobs and places to stay until it held only Vivian, Esme, and Uncle Ruddy. Vivian had thought by this time they would have made plans for the future, but now the whole pack seemed to be crazy, her mother included. With more than half of them dead, no one knew his or her place anymore. There was constant squabble. Survival depended on their blending in while they organized and decided where they would move and settle for good. But at any moment, the pack was likely to explode into a ball of flying fur. They needed a leader, badly, but no one could agree who. Blend in, she thought. If only I could. Last summer she had hid in her room and slept mostly, and in the early hours of the morning, the time when wolfkind come home to shed their pelts, Vivian would hear her mother crying inconsolably by her open bedroom window for someone who would never come home again. By the time her junior year started, however, Vivian had begun eating almost regularly, and Esme had found herself a job as a waitress at Tooley's, a local dive. Gradually, it wasn't so hard to make it through the day. Vivian was no longer exhausted when she walked in the door at 3:30, and the school book began to make sense. She started to look longingly at the groups of kids laughing together around the flagpole after school. At first she thought, why would I make friends with people who would kill me if they knew what I was? What if I give myself away? But the yearning continued, and it was then she realized that she didn't know how to make friends. She had always had the pack around her, the pack that now hid in their separate dens. There were always pack kids. She had never had to reach out for company. Company was always there. The 5 were still around, of course, but now she couldn't bear to be with them, and they could never be her friends now anyway. They all saw her as a mate. Be nice to one and the others will sulk and snap. Fight, fight, fight. That's what paying attention to them means. I want other friends, she thought, but no one seemed to want her. She stood in front of her closet mirror in her t-shirt and twisted this way and that. What's wrong with me? She wondered. There was nothing the matter that she could see. She was tall and leggy like her mother, with full breast, small waist, and slim hips that curved enough to show she was female. Her skin was gently golden. It was always golden, sun or not, and her tawny hair was thick and long and wild. So why was it that groups of girls stopped talking when she approached them at school and answered her openings with terse words that killed the conversations she tried to start? Was she too good-looking? Was that possible? Was that the threat they saw? She was a beautiful loup-garou. She knew. The 5 howled for her. But what did human eyes perceive? The boys nudged each other when she passed. She'd seen them out of the corner of her eye. They'd noticed her, and she could understand why 1 or 2 might blush and stammer if she talked to them. There were always shy boys who would die if any girl noticed them. But where were the bold ones? Male or female, they resisted her. Could they see the forest in her eyes? The shadow of her pelt? Were her teeth too sharp? It's hard not to be a wolf, she thought. She missed the mountain slopes where humans were far apart and the pack was close, and she hardly ever had to pretend. I don't care, she thought, twirling around. I don't need humans. I still have the pack, and we'll be moving on again soon. But she did care. The pack was in shreds, and in the midst of these humans, she was wolfkind, wolf-garou. And this made her an outsider, and unwanted. But they would like me if they took time to know me, she thought. They just don't know me. She flung herself onto her bed and stretched out her legs in the air to admire her sleek curves, holding her hips to embrace herself aloft. She stretched as hard as she could, toes pointed, fingers reaching, muscles in sweet tension, almost as sweet as the change to fur. I am strong, she whispered. I can run with the night and catch the dawn. I can kick a hole in the sky. And she struck out with a foot to prove her point, then curled into a ball. She missed her father, his advice, his comfort. She bared her teeth at the familiar pain. From where she lay, she could see the unbroken wall where she'd cleared of furniture and the mural she'd started to console herself to make this room hers. Jagged, thick blacks made the forest a wild thing, texture on texture. The painted moon shone fiercely, where there was red slashed into the dark. Eyes. Blood. Loup-garou ran through the pooled moonlight on a night in her people's ancient past. The story said that by ritual, sacrifice, and sacrament, they opened their souls to the forest god. The great hunter who took the shape of a wolf, to reward them for their devotion, his mate, the moon, gave them the gift to be more than human. Then they could throw aside the pelts of hunted animals and grow their own, abandon their knives of flint and use their teeth. Their children's children still carried the beast within, and all were subject to the moon. In the center of the mural was where she would become part of the night, where she could run with the pack of her ancestors. But now, whenever she picked up the brush, she couldn't go on. She couldn't see herself there. She had a dream about the painting that kept coming back. She was surrounded by darkness, and she couldn't see the muzzles around her. She was running, trying to reach the open night, but all around her the huge forms crowded close and abraded her skin with their harsh, thick fur as they thudded into and jostled her, and she couldn't grow her pelt. It was always their fur against her skin, and she'd wake up crying. As if to counteract the dream, she had become obsessed for a while, and had created dozens of similar paintings and sketches of the pack she knew while growing up. They lined her closet and were stacked in the space between her dresser and the wall. They helped her hold on to the past. They kept her from going crazy. The art teacher thought she was one of the punk artsy types and raved about the power of expression. Great moon, he'd shit a brick if he knew my subjects were real, Vivian thought gleefully. He talked to her in submitting a few prints to the school literary magazine. She'd laughed at first, but why not? And now, to her surprise, there was one of her prints near the center of the trumpet. Vivian smiled, and no doubt those humans thought her work was the too cool vision of the terminally hip and dangerous. Thought of this small acceptance pushed back to the gloom, and she bound up to fetch her backpack and have another look. She should leave the magazine open on the kitchen table for Mom to see tomorrow, before she went to work. Would she recognize her daughter's art? Would she be proud? The magazine smelled glossy and was cool in her hands. She found her print and devoured the sheen of it, crisp and stark. And will those girls at school notice me now? She thought. She hadn't even bothered to see who she shared space with. Is my work better than the others? She wondered now. A poem was on the page opposite hers. She looked at it suspiciously. A crappy poem would lessen what she'd done, make it cheap. The title startled her. Wolf Change. She read on. Corsair of the wood, discard your skin, your pallid, worm-like vulnerability. Corsair of the wood, exchange your skin for pelt of dun and bridal luxury. The pentagram is burning in your eyes, and soft pale twists of wolfbane squeeze your heart. A grinding pain is writhing in your thighs. The crunch of bone proclaims the change's start. Pirate of the flesh, throw back your head and part your jowls to sing a lunar song. The forest paths are dark, the night is long. She shivered in delicious shock. He knows, she thought. He knows what's in the picture. Anger edged out of the excitement, and her eyes narrowed. Who was Aiden Teague? Why should he know the forest paths? But she was intrigued. Maybe she should seek him out and have a look at this person who wrote the crunch of bones, see if she approved of him. And what if she didn't? Set the 5 on him? She laughed softly, bearing sharp white teeth. Now that was only chapter 1, but I figure this video is long enough, and it's enough to make you guys want to either actually read the book or come back next week and listen to me read it to you. So join me next week on Emmy Reads a Book to Your Face. Bye.